All right, good morning, Center for Spiritual Living, Palm Desert. It's another amazing, wonderful Sunday to be with you, to be together with our beloved spiritual community as we continue to roll on amidst the COVID and everything that's happening in the world. The church has never been closed. We're always open. The building might be not as attended as it normally is, but our ministry is strong, stronger than ever, and so powerful. So welcome to this beautiful service this Sunday. We have got a magnificent service planned. Coming to the stage right now is the wonderful Stephen Rogers, who's going to bless us with his music. Stephen, take it away. We appreciate you being here.
Hi there, Steve Rogers here. A big welcome to all of you at the Center for Spiritual Living, all of you lovely people who come every week, to Dr. Joe Hooper, to all the amazing staff, to Jerry and her amazing house band. I'm sorry we're not there in person, but obviously we can't be at the present time. I would like to say though, within these difficult times, this is what we practice for. We practice to have patience and to give out a loving vibration, and we just have to keep feeding our spirit at this time and keep ourselves looking at the good and just ignore all the fear that's going around the world, because we need to be beacons of light. The world needs more light. So on that note, I shall leave you with a song called There's a Feeling. It goes like this. Okay. There's a feeling when you believe in the goodness of life. It's around you, 'cause it loves you, but it can only come from you.
Stephen Rogers, thank you so much. That was a beautiful song. We're so blessed to have you with us today, to bless all of us. Thank you so much. So I want to share a couple of announcements, things that are coming up as we continue to be busier than ever around our center, what's happening in the coming week. Tomorrow, Monday, June 15th, Dr. Joe will be having a conversation with Reverend Dr. David Alt from Atlanta. He's been with us a few times and met with rave reviews, so we're blessed to bring him back. Dr. Joe and David will be doing that. Tuesday, the continuing ongoing conversation with Jafon Seeley. It's been evocative, provocative, healing, educational. It's been everything. So we really invite everybody to participate in that conversation as we continue the process of healing and waking up and doing what we can do. So that's Tuesday, Dr. Joe and Jafon Seeley. On Wednesday, the Sensational Six continue to roll on, Wednesday at 10 a.m., giving us their views on spiritual principle and how they live. And now that they're recent graduates, they're even more empowered to bring the message and the word to our community. So Wednesday, the Sensational Six. And then on Thursday, I've asked Jeff Harrison to come out from behind the camera and be in front of it so that we can have one of our conversations. I'm going to be interviewing / having a conversation with Jeff about his views of what's happening and how his business has really blossomed and how he is empowering and supporting the local and broader community in getting their word out in the message. So that's going to be a very interesting conversation with Jeff Harrison, the founder and master of Swing Point Media. We're bringing them from behind the producer's booth, out of the producer's booth. And then on Friday, my good friend Reverend Daryl Jones out of Chicago is going to join me. I've known Reverend Daryl for 15 years now, and is an extraordinary buddy of mine. We're going to talk about his path in ministry. We're going to talk about his father, who was also a minister who recently passed. And it's going to be a fascinating conversation, intimate conversation about ministry and you. And that's what we're going to talk about. It's going to be good. So then on Saturday, we have our meditation at 10 a.m., our ongoing offering of meditation. And then the next Sunday, Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to me. Thank you very much. And all you fathers out there in a week, we're going to have another wonderful service planned for you. That's June 21st. And then Dr. Joe will wrap up the series on the 4 agreements with always doing your best. So those are the announcements. That's what's going on. All right, beloved community, now's our time every week where we take a stand and declare what we are here for, our mission statement, the reason we exist, what we're up to, what our agenda is as a community, an agenda of love. So let's say this mission statement together as one body. We are a dynamic, open, and positive faith community that accepts all religions. Our mission is to awaken you to your divine nature, empowering you to create the life of your dreams. We are changing lives one heart at a time. So I invite us as a community to celebrate those words by moving them inward from an outer declaration of who we are and why we exist to an inward experience of that. Such that there's a movement, a commitment, a movement of our soul, a commitment of our heart to actually be changed today. Each one of us to be changed. Not change over there, or change over there, or I wish they would change, or I wish he would change or she would change. But I am ready to change, to become more myself, more loving, more compassionate, more empathic, a greater force for peace, more joyful, to see beauty where I look, to experience it. Let's take a breath together. And as we welcome our hearts to be thrown open wide, as we continue in the sacred ritual of prayer and silence and song, I know that we are blessed. And I know that through song, that through prayer, that through silence, somehow our spiritual body metabolizes the nourishment, such that wherever we are being called to become more, that spiritual insight is welcomed in a way that makes sense to each one of us individually, that we can grow, become, evolve, welcome more of the presence and the power of God, of love, into and as our lives. I'm grateful for this time. It is good.
Show me the way. Show me the way. Your love will light my way. Show me the way.
Show me the way.
Show me the way.
Show me the way.
Your joy will light my way. Show me the way.
Show me the way.
Show me the way.
Show me the way.
Your peace will light my way. Show me the way.
Show me the way.
Show me the way.
Show me the way.
Your truth will light my way. And your love will light my way. And your joy will light my way. And your peace will light my way. And your truth will light my way. Om Shanti Om Shanti Om Shanti Om Shanti Om Shanti Om Shanti Om. Om Shanti Om Shanti Om Shanti Om Shanti Om Shanti Om Shanti Om. Om Shanti Om Shanti Om Shanti Om Shanti Om Shanti Om Shanti Om. Now take a deep breath in and exhale all the way out.
So grateful to know in this moment that the only thing there is the power and the presence of God, of love, of joy. The isness that is ising constantly, that doesn't need a name, but we name it and it helps us feel comfortable. But it is simply the presence and the power of life. Being itself as my life, being itself as each one of us, as we join together in this sacred moment of Holy Communion, of prayer, of communion, of a common union that we share, a union, the state of our own union with the living presence and power and love of God. And out of an awareness of this union, I speak my word today that each one of us are growing into a greater compassion, growing into a greater vessel of love. That right where we are, that right where we stand, we are aware is holy ground, and we invite others into participating in that holiness, that beauty, that unfettered enthusiasm simply for being alive at this time when we have work to do. Oh, we don't want to live an idle life. We want to live a life of adventure and of contribution, a life of assistance and a life of help, a life of seeing the beauty even in the midst of the chaos, because in seeing the beauty we can see how we can make a substantive, empowered, and positive contribution to our local and a community and beyond. It is a good time to be alive. Amidst the fear, we declare peace. Amidst the chaos, we declare order. Amidst the doubt, we declare harmony. Right action. Right action. As Eric Butterworth said, we are not here to make things right, but to see them rightly. And something happens when we see something rightly. We can begin to see the beauty and the purpose in it. And then we are activated in beauty and in purpose, and we get our marching orders from our intuition. We get our marching orders from within. And we know what is ours to do today. And today I declare for our community that we know what is ours to do. I don't know what's yours to do, and you don't know what is mine to do, but individually and as a collective, we know what to do because we're in communion with the Holy Spirit. And from there we move forth vigorously in our spiritual authority, sharing the love that is within. I'm grateful for this moment of prayer and for this word that I speak. I'm grateful to symbolically be on my knees now, touching the sacred hem of the garment that sets me free, that sets us free. The hem of the garment of the Christ's presence that resides within each one of us, that makes us new instantaneously as we're available. That is what I'm grateful for today, now. I feel good about my word. I feel good about our time of prayer. I feel good about our communion together this morning, being together as one, being lifted in the name and nature and the substance of the living Spirit of God Almighty that resides at the very center of each one of us. I let it be. We swing from prayer to performance. And now that we are prayed up, we perform by making a sacred contribution to life today. I'm grateful. In one word, I call all of it good. And so it is. Amen.
Still my mind, be at peace in my awakening. I release with my heart, free my soul, In my awakening,
in my awakening,
I am whole.
I am whole.
As I love,
As I love,
and as I give,
as I give,
in my awakening,
in my awakening,
I choose to live.
I choose to live.
Give me strength,
Give me strength,
shine your light.
shine your light.
In my awakening,
In my awakening,
clear my sight.
clear my sight.
All I believe,
All I believe,
and all I know.
all I know.
In my awakening,
In my awakening,
I let go.
I let go.
Fill me with love
Fill me with love.
and conquer my fears.
Conquer my fears.
In my awakening,
In my awakening,
God appears.
God appears.
Still my mind,
Still my mind.
be at peace.
Be at peace.
In my awakening,
In my awakening,
I release. Om Shanti Om Shanti Om Shanti Om Shanti Om Shanti Om Shanti Om Om Shanti Om Shanti Om Shanti Om Shanti Om Shanti Om Shanti Om Om Shanti Om Shanti Om Shanti Om Shanti Om Shanti Om Shanti Om
When did the rules change? When did I find out that life was harder than I thought? When did I grow up? When did I realize there's so much more for me to learn? So I will grow. When did I feel that life had given up on me? When did I feel I'd had enough? When did I start to think I had to make a change? 'Cause no one was gonna do it for me. But I will grow. did I see the sun rise for the first time? When did I finally understand? When did I leave my battles far behind me? When did I learn to let them go? I have grown.
Hey, so thank you so much, Stephen Rogers. We're so very glad that you joined us today. So my talk today is still on the 4 agreements. We're going to talk about the 3rd agreement, but first we have to review. We have the Book of Law, which is a system of beliefs that you've created since the day you were born, and we don't question too much of it as we go older because it requires us to go deep into thought and look at things that we may not want to look at. But moving into the 4 agreements, we have to open up our book of law and see if there's something we need to expose and allow ourselves to change over time. We talked about being impeccable with our word, making sure that, man, what we're saying is what we really feel, and understanding that some words help and some words harm. Understanding that when we're impeccable with our word, we follow through on our commitments, people can trust us to do what we've asked them to do, or they've committed to us. Be impeccable with your words. Second one, don't take things personally. Oh man, I still worked on that this week. I was taking everything personally. People were saying things and doing things, and it was all about me, and it's really not all about me. None of it's all about me. I need to make sure that I'm taking care of myself and not taking things personally when people are working out their stuff. All right? So the 3rd agreement, don't make assumptions. This is probably one of the biggest agreements that we have to work on. It is so easy to move into a consciousness of making assumptions based on our book of law, based on people being impeccable with their word or not, based on us taking the things personally or not. That's why we can't make assumptions. So why is it the 3rd? Easy. Perhaps living in a world where people aren't impeccable with their word, and because of that we take things personally, then it only stands to reason that we've made assumptions about a person, their culture, and even their belief systems. Think about how many assumptions have been made over the past few weeks. Man, I'm telling you what, it's been an experience to look at and examine your assumptions. One thing I'm very grateful for is my time spent with Jafon Seeley, and finding those hidden assumptions that I've made in the back of my mind, or that were in my book of law, and him bringing them to the forefront so I can really see them and know that they exist. Because we put people, entire cultures, and religions, we put them in categories based on our assumptions. And that, when we're not impeccable with our word, when we're not looking at things in a way that we've never looked at them before, when we're looking through our rose-colored glasses of assumption, we only see what we want to see, not what really exists or is in front of us. We make assumptions because in the absence of other information, it fits well into our book of law, and we can easily believe in its truth. We make assumptions because in the absence of other information, I make up a story that fits into my belief system. In the absence of knowing things to be factual and hearing all sides of things, I begin to make assumptions based on the way they fit into my book of beliefs, my paradigm, the very patterns that I've established that carry through in my life, the very things I use for labels and perceptions. We make assumptions because we don't have any other information. But as soon as you open up that door just a little bit, as soon as you just crack that door open and start having conversations with other people and start looking at things a little bit differently, you realize that you don't have the story correct, that you only may have part of the story, not all of the story. I've always been acutely aware that there's always three parts to every story. That's this version, that version, and what really lies in the middle, which usually is the truth. And I need to be able to be open and receptive to the idea that it's not always my version of what I think is the truth. I need to be open to the idea that there's another thing happening right in front of my eyes that maybe I'm blind to because of my book of belief, and maybe I'm blind to it because of the assumptions I'm making. Next thing. When we gossip, I'll talk about assumptions. When we gossip about assumptions, we create a dream of hell and invite people to join us and drink our poison. When you gossip with people, when you talk about people behind their backs, or races or cultures of people, or religions, whatever it is, when you begin to gossip and have conversations that are, let's say, less than authentic, when you begin to have those kinds of conversations, we start creating what we call a dream of hell, which is the separation. And we invite people to start drinking that poison with us. And usually you hear, oh, honey, I got a story for you. You tell your story, but then I'm going to tell my story, which is even a bigger story. So we move into these places of assumptions as soon as we begin the process of gossiping. And then we defend them. Even though we have no real factual basis to do so, we make other people wrong. And when we do that, guess what we create? When we defend those gossipy positions, and we have, in the absence of other real information, guess there's only one thing you create, and that's drama. Big, bold drama. Because that's what happens when we gossip. We get this energy that happens around that conversation, and it creates a story, and that story creates drama, and that drama is what draws us in, and we all want to contribute to the storyline that's being articulated around the table. It's a very dangerous thing to do when we gossip and make assumptions. Of the 1,000 voices in your head, we tend to focus on the same ones which comply with our book of law. There may be thousands of people talking and about a certain subject matter, but the only one I really listen to is the one I already agree with because it conforms to my book of law. I'm not even open receptive to hearing the other voices because my book of law can't change because it's mine. I created it. I believe in it, and to change it would require me to not only listen but try to understand what someone else is saying. I have a responsibility to open up because the thoughts and ideas that I had when I was a child or growing up, they're no longer current. They no longer apply. It's time for me to open up this book of belief and go, throw these pages out now and get some renumber and put in new pages, blank pages that you can write new history on. Allow yourself to be open to the idea that there's new pages in this book of law that need to be written, and overwrite the old pages and just tear them out and throw them away. Some of these old belief systems, some of these assumptions that we've made are no longer applicable today. And it requires me to take a look at that and start paying attention to some of the other voices that are around me, and especially some of the voices in my head. I don't know about you, but I've got 1 million people talking to me all day long in my head. It gets scary. You wouldn't want to be in my head. It's very confusing. But the ones I align myself with are the very ones that I've always aligned myself with. The ones that I listen to the most are the ones where my comfort zone isn't challenged. That's the one I listen to. When I don't have to open up my book of belief. When I could just slam it shut and go, yeah, I already knew this. One of my biggest faults, and I'm working on it too, we all have to work on it, is when something smacks me in the head, when some idea comes up in my mind, to actually sit and explore it instead of just discard it on its face value. There's a reason why those 1,000 voices are working in your head, and there's a reason why, maybe, just maybe, we need to pay attention to them. Maybe we need a shift in what's happening in our world so we can create shift in the outer world. Just an idea. When we don't understand something completely, we make assumptions to fill the gap and feel safe. I've always said, in the absence of the truth, your mind makes up a story and it becomes the truth. And even though someone else will tell you what the truth is in a certain situation, you won't believe it because your mind filled the gap with the truth and you bought into it, and now someone has to disprove your misunderstanding or your mistruths. I'll tell you, this is one of the chapters that I always read that I think, man, I have so much work to do in here. Because when I don't understand something, my mind has to create the method and the journey by which I got there. And that may not have any accuracies at all. It may be totally off base. But the second that not only do I think it, but I think, yeah, that's plausible. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it confirms and can be associated with my old book of belief. Then I go, yeah, okay, that's what happened. That's what happened. And even though someone else tries to convince me that, no, Joe, that's not what happened, I was there. I'm telling you, I was there. I go, you probably misunderstood it. Because this is the way I've decided that I'm going to believe about a certain thing. And once I do that, once I've created that storyline, oh man, how many times have you been in a relationship? Oh God, here we go. How many times have you been in a relationship and created a storyline about the behavior of someone else? And no matter what really happened, you still believe it. And you throw the gauntlet down and you have a fight over it because you made up in your mind that this is exactly what's going on. And you felt like Sherlock Holmes and you were sleuthing around and trying to find clues that actually solidified the arguments that you were trying to buttress. And at the end of the day, the person walks in and says, this is not what happened at all. And you're like, oh, prove it, because I have a whole list of things that I think have happened. And then you have the audacity to say, yeah, well, call in witnesses, other people that were there, other people that you've talked about or told. That's the only way I'm going to change this. Think about how many times we've done that and how often we can totally distort a situation based on the story that we made up because in the absence of truth, our mind has to fill the gap. Next thing, 4 of the most dangerous words in any relationship. Anybody ever been in a relationship? Then these words will ring true with you in ways that you will be able to say, I have felt this pain before. Quote, you should have known. End quote. You should have known. I didn't tell you. I haven't articulated those feelings yet, but you should have known. Because we've been together years and years and years. We've had conversations over the years. You should have known how I felt. Really? How about if you were to, articulate what you feel in ways that the other person can hear it and you can have a conversation around it instead of like, you should have known this. You should have known. How many times in your life have you actually said that to someone else? You should know how I feel even though I'm the most complicated person you've ever met. Or at least that's the way you tell me I am, and that's what I proclaim myself to be. I'm very complicated. I have all sorts of nuances, but you should be able to read my mind. Think about that. That's ridiculous. One of the biggest assumptions we make. You should have known. So when you find yourself saying those words, sit back for a moment and go, wow, I don't think I've properly articulated, or even if I have, maybe they need just a little reminder, a kind, gentle reminder about what I'm feeling, what I need to convey. Because in the absence of that, I guarantee you will be in the middle of a fight. We will destroy our relationships to defend our positions, many of which are based on assumptions. Think about how many relationships in the world that have been destroyed because of assumptions. That the new thing tried to reveal itself, but because both people were so entrenched in their assumptions, neither one could be open and receptive enough to even begin to change that idea. Be open to and receptive enough to say, there is something other than what I believe happening here. You know, this part about don't making assumptions, it's actually a really good tool for anyone that's in a relationship with other people, and also how we relate to other people outside in the world. We destroy our positions based on assumptions of maybe the idea that something happened in the 60s or the 70s or the 80s or the 90s or our past. And it's just not valid anymore. God knows, I don't want people making assumptions on who I was in the 80s. Frightening. Because if they kept that assumption, they wouldn't even be able to listen to what I had to say. We wouldn't even be able to have a conversation because they would think of me as that person back then. Hell, I don't want to be known as the person that talked to you 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. because things have changed. And I'm willing to accept my responsibility in that change, and I want you to accept your responsibility and how when things change, I can change the way I look at things, period. I don't have to continue to go back to the same old drawing board and recreate the wheel based on my book of law that I've created. You should have known. Okay, so here we go. You should have known. Say to yourself, I am impeccable with my word, I don't take things personally, and I stop making assumptions. If you can put those three things into play this week, you are doing a fantastic job, and we will begin to move the needle in every area of relationships, whether it's relationships with our spouses and our families and our friends, or relationships out there in the community. Whatever's happening in the community, I can change that. When I'm impeccable with my word, when I stand in my truth, I don't take things personally, it's not all about me, and I stop making assumptions about other people, but rather be a listening ear and someone who's responding in good faith. So I have this chart here, and I want to share it with you because in the self-mastery course, there's this amazing chart. And here, Jeff's going to bring it up for us. So I'm going to teach from this, and I'm going to give you a real-life example about how people make assumptions and how those assumptions turn into actions that may or may not have any validity to them. So keep that graphic up, Jeff. And as you can see, the first thing we do is we observe. We observe the things that are happening around us. We look at the experience, and it's kind of like our mind video records it. And so here's literally what happened to me. And this story is a true story based on something that happened to Joe. Someone's observation was, Joe said to me hello in the foyer, and it only took 2 seconds. Okay? That's what happened. A 2-second hello in the foyer. Then, next thing, we take that observation and we select what data we want to use from what we've observed. So after that person observed me saying hello for just 2 brief seconds in the line, they said, he selected this idea. He didn't make eye contact with me. So he said hello, but he didn't even look me in the eyes. And then we take that and we add meaning to it. We had some sort of a cultural, personal meaning to it. In other words, he ended up saying, Joe took 2 seconds with me in the lobby. He didn't make eye contact with me. Joe doesn't like me. Uh-oh. Now we're in the place of assumptions. We make assumptions based on the meaning that we just created. So now we had an observation. Joe only took 2 seconds. He didn't make eye contact with me. Joe doesn't like me. And what's the assumption? Joe is not a warm person. All that based on a 2-second interaction in the foyer. But let's keep going up the ladder, because it doesn't stop at the assumptions, because once you make assumptions, you have to draw conclusions. So here's the conclusion. It's difficult to know who Joe really is. Because I only had 2 seconds in the line and I didn't make contact, Joe doesn't like me, he's not a warm person, it's so hard to figure out who Joe is. All this on 2 seconds in the foyer. But here we go. It goes further, because our conclusions create our belief system. Adopt beliefs about the world around us. So you know what? After he started believing that Joe's difficult to know who he really is, he believes that ministers are phony. So now, because of a 2-second interaction, I'll go through the whole list. 2-second interaction, didn't make eye contact, Joe doesn't like me, Joe's not a warm person, it's difficult to know who Joe is, and because of that, all ministers are phony. You're like, are you kidding me? And then they take an action based on it. Are you ready? So we observe, select, add meaning, assume, conclude. Now he believes that ministers are phony. So what's the action that he takes? I'm quitting the center and finding a different spiritual community. We take actions based on those beliefs. All right, so take the graphic down. Can you see how 1 2-second interaction can change the course of a course of someone's place where they go to worship? And now they don't know that maybe that in that 2 seconds, and I don't remember what happened, because this is what happens in the line. It goes very quick, and some people are like, hey, Joe, and I'm like, oh, you know what, I'm in the middle of it, and maybe I need to do better. Maybe I need to really make sure I'm making eye contact with everybody. But sometimes people will yell something, say something, or even trip in front of me. And in that process, someone gets a 2-second interaction, oh, hi, and didn't make eye contact with them, and now they're quitting the church, and they've made all the assumptions that for now on, that's not going to serve them well. Think about how many times people have done that to you. They've observed something, and because of that observation, they selected what they wanted to see, and then they gave it real meaning. They started making assumptions and conclusions. They made a belief system around it, and then they acted in such a way where none of it was meant to cause any ill intention whatsoever. There was no ill intent whatsoever. It was innocent. But it can change the course of people's lives. So pop the graphic up one more time, Jeff. So watch what you look at. Look for this. What do you observe? What are you observing, and how are you selecting and making that data become part of your belief system? And if you do, you better make sure that you're stretching out more than just the things that you see, but stretching out to the things of the thousand voices of your head and the people around you going, now, can you look at this thing a little bit differently? To make sure that when you're adding meaning to something, you're not making assumptions. Once you do that and you start drawing conclusions, you create a belief system that usually fits with your old book of law, and then you act on it, and it's still, there was nothing there at all. It was something you created. So I want you to find your voice. Find your voice in all of this. And make sure that when you're conveying your feelings to someone and you're articulating that you're not making any assumptions about the things that they're hearing, but you're conveying it with great clarity and ease. And make sure you talk to the ears that are listening to it. I mean, I know for a fact that sometimes when people are yelling things at me, I'm not hearing what they really want to say because the way they're saying it is shutting my ideas down. So please, make an effort to talk to the ears, even when you're frustrated, even when you're angry. Talk to the ears that are listening, and it can be a productive conversation. But by all means, have that communication, and don't just make assumptions, communicate with one another. Now, caution. I have to throw up a caution flag. Habits and routines are the root causes of assumptions. Just remember this. When we have a habit and we have a routine, usually that's one of the root causes of having assumptions, making assumptions. So we have to look at how we're on autopilot and how our beliefs are on autopilot. How when someone is approaching you on the street, you have a routine based on your book of beliefs, and you respond for that assumption whether or not it's true. You respond that way. Are you making assumptions about people walking down a street? Are you making assumptions about people who are, you know what, I'll say it. Do you make assumptions about people that will and will not wear a mask? Are you making assumptions? It's easy to do. You don't even know the whole truth. And then you may not hear what they have to say because of the way you believe about a certain subject matter. Come on, folks. We have to look at how we're handling these situations and how we're making assumptions and how dangerous it is, especially at a time in our history where we've experienced so much chaos. I'll just leave it at that. Past few weeks have been filled, man. Past months have been filled with it. It's time we take a look at these assumptions. And there's a magic of that assumption-free living. There's a magic that comes with living without making those assumptions. And it's this. I'm open to any idea that the universe has to show me the journey that I'm truly, authentically on. Not one that I've tainted with my past experiences, but I'm willing to stand in my life experience in this moment and experience the authenticity of living in this moment without dragging up all of my baggage and all of my assumptions and all of my conclusions and all of my beliefs and all of my observations, but to literally live in this moment. To be in this moment and be open and receptive to the idea that maybe, just maybe, I need to open up my book of law and change some of those things that have been written there for decades. Because to me, it's up to us. It's up to me first. And then it's up to our faith community. And then it moves out from there. We can do this work. All we got to do is be open and receptive to it. So next week, always do your best. It sounds very simple, but it's not. But next week's lesson will be always do your best. Have a great week, and so end your lesson. Namaste.
All right. What a wonderful morning we've had together, huh? It's so good. And such a blessing to receive the goodness and the message from Dr. Joe and the beautiful music and everything. And now we have a wonderful opportunity to participate in the law of circulation and participate in it powerfully. And we know that the law of circulation is that we give and we receive. And so haven't we received profoundly this morning? And so I say we give profoundly this morning. So let's since we're doing most of this virtually, consider what your financial gift, what your contribution to our center is this morning. I invite you to bring the idea of it close to your heart, so that you feel that you're actually giving of your God's substance, not just money, but intention and idea and resource and source, that we're so blessed to have a place such as this to share it. So I'm grateful this morning that as we do circulate, that we do so powerfully, that we receive life powerfully and we give life powerfully. And in this moment, specifically regarding money, the sacred soul and idea of money that we share, I bless the gift, I bless the giver, I bless the receiver. I know that the entire ritual is enwrapped in a shroud of beauty and goodness. I call it good. And we give powerfully today. And so it is. Amen. Right. So for this wonderful service, it's been such a great service today. I am grateful to give a prayer of gratitude for the way that we've been blessed by the music, the way we've been blessed by our wonderful spiritual leader, Dr. Joe, his insight and willingness to share of his heart with us. For all of the ways that we have been blessed together this morning, I am grateful. I know that as we go about our week, that we fly. Be willing to fly. Leap and learn to fly. Let's leap together this week, shall we? Let's leap. Let's leap. I bless us each as we go about our week, wherever that finds us, that again, we are standing on holy ground everywhere we are. I'm grateful. I call it good, and so it is. Have a beautiful week, community. Much love.